justified you. You were a sinner. You were destined for hell. But the God who saved you is sanctifying you, and he has justified you. He has acquitted you of all of your guilt. And because of the righteousness of Jesus Christ, you stand before him today, holy and pure. And what a God we serve. And those whom he justified, he also glorified. See, all these things are as if they were done. It's past tense. Paul was writing this in Romans. He said, listen, this is what God has done for you. He saved you. He sanctified you. And he's glorified you. In God's mind, it is as if your salvation is complete. And that's what we need to grasp hold of as we encounter Ecclesiastes chapter 3. As we encounter the ebbs and flows of life. We need to understand that if I serve God, if God be for me, then who can be against me? Even more, what can be against me? None of the circumstances of life can stop what God wants to do in my life. God is in control, not my circumstances. I need to grasp hold of this God of providence and thank him. That's why, the Bible tells us to give thanks in all things. How in the world can I give thanks in all things? Because all things are not always things I want to give thanks for or in. How can I do that? When I'm dealing with a debilitating disease, or I'm dealing with financial struggles, or, my family's just not where it needs to be, or the relationship's not right, or whatever it may be, I'm in a crisis in my job. How can I give thanks for all those, in all those things? The only way is to know that God saved me, sanctified me, glorified me. God is providential, and he's working out his plan in my life, and all these things are allowed to happen because God has filtered them, and he's used them for a purpose in my life. It reminds me of that story that Jesus dealt with in the New Testament. In the New Testament, they had a guy that was born blind. Remember this? And the religious leaders of that day had flawed theology a little bit. And they looked at Jesus and they said, why was this man born blind? Did his parents sin that he was born blind? Or did he sin and he was born blind? So they said something in his life was sinful, so therefore he was born blind. He had a malady because of that sin. Well, here's what Jesus said to him. Jesus said to them, neither his parents nor he sinned. He was born blind so that God would be glorified. Isn't that powerful? We don't look at life like that too often, do we? The guy was born blind so that God could be glorified. His life was a living testimony to the glory of God, and he was a blind guy. If God will cause a person to be born blind to bring glory to his name, why would he not allow circumstances in our lives that are difficult to bring glory to his name? He will. So if you've got a difficulty in your life, God's allowed for a purpose. We need to grasp hold of the sovereignty of God and say, God, I trust you in the midst of the storm. Help me understand the purpose of what's happening. And help me in this storm to glorify you. That's God's purpose in our life. The only caution in our comfort is the constant change. And the reason I say that is because sometimes we can get comfortable even in this embracing of God and forget that change is going to happen. When we get in a station in life and we get satisfied in that station in life, and then all of a sudden something changes and we forget about that person that we had grasped hold of, God, and we start blaming him for the change in life. And we just got to be careful in that comfort and know that life is about change. And God ordains change in our life. And it's not always going to be the same. It's not always going to be comfortable. And that's why in Proverbs, the Bible tells us, come now, you who say today or tomorrow, we will go into such and such a town and spend a year, I think it's James, spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. We understand God's in